That fast-track facilities are obviously one thing that would make the AFCFTA more impactful in Nigeria, and we will discuss more on that with Man, hopefully, because the customs would hardly answer us for conversations. But I mean, it is something that would help exports and even imports. And if we're looking for foreign exchange, then these are some of the things that the country ought to focus on. We're also talking about the economy, obviously, here in Business Morning. That's what we do. African Refiners and Distributors Association is estimating the cost of displacing charcoal with clean cooking gas, which is also known as liquefied petroleum gas, to cost Nigeria and other countries in Africa about $7.5 billion for downstream infrastructure and stoves. Now we have joining us for this conversation Mr. Nuhu Yakubu. He's the Group Chief Executive Officer of Bana Energy and a former president of Nigeria Liquefied Petroleum Gas Association. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Mr. Yakubu, joining us from London. I think you're muted, Mr. Yakubu. Could you unmute, please? Mr. Yakubu, can you hear me? I cannot hear you because I believe you're muted. Could you unmute?
Yes. Good morning, Ini. Nice to hear you this morning. Good morning, viewers.
Okay. So can we assume that at this point of development, this level of development in Nigeria, that all Nigerians have accepted that cooking gas is healthier and better than charcoal or stoves?
Good morning, everybody, once again. Of course, who doesn't like a good thing? I think with the way our people in the rural communities have embraced gas now, it is clearly evident of the acceptance of LPG as a cleaner cooking fuel for rural populace and indeed the urban populace today. And also for reasons of its availability and unavailability of the charcoal. As you may well know, there's deforestation is real. Access to charcoal as an alternative fuel or as the predominant domestic fuel is no longer as readily available as it used to be. Even when it's available, it's very expensive now, so much so that it's even outweighs the cost of cooking gas sometimes in some localities. So yes, indeed, that is swaying a lot more users to LPG as an alternative and better source of cooking fuel for domestic. Thank you.
So can we now comfortably say that the major obstacle to the spread of the use of LPG in Nigeria is funding?
Well, I will not place funding as the predominant obstacle. Funding is still an issue anyway. But predominant challenge for the LPG sector today is supply. Supply has become a huge challenge. It's a cocktail. The supply side is a mix of domestic supply sources and international and foreign supply sources. And as you have it, since it's like that, it means that it's largely dependent on foreign exchange as a means of trading it at that bulk level. And then it then means that once there's supply, demand will always be there. So once the supply is strong, it therefore means that money will always chase a strong product. So once the finance sees that supply side is strong, naturally they fall over themselves or it fall over itself to fund the supply side. So I would say supply is a bigger challenge. Of course, funding remains a challenge as well. The area where funding has become a challenge is where, for example, the intervention funds, or in fact, the funding side is split between the equity and the debt segments. The equity segment is ill-funded, while debt is, is not strong, even though on good cases you get good funding. But you see, debt will always be available when there is a strong equity base. Equity intervention funds have been made available in recent times through the CBN intervention, for example, where 450 billion naira was made available through the CBN intervention window. But the disbursement modalities was not as fluent, and as a result, I don't think many operators in the industry have gained access to that fund. And also, you have other funds. For example, we hear the $800 million subsidy removal palliative fund, which the federal government is sourcing. But we're a bit worried that such fund, which will have gone straight into funding the equity side of projects, gas infrastructure development projects, is being channeled towards conditional cash transfers. And one wonders how the conditional cash transfers will actually help to usher in the desired objective of switching Nigerians from dirty fuels to LPG or natural gas, or even resolving the challenge that Nigerians will be faced when subsidies is removed. So that's to the extent of how the equity can be properly. So it means we need to, the government or the players in the sector financing market have to do more in thinking smart as to how to channel equity funds towards getting the debts, freeing up the debt to infrastructure development. But I will place the bigger challenge on supply side.
Yeah, you know, when you talk about supply of gas in a country like Nigeria, it sounds kind of out of place because we're still flaring gas. I mean, and even like Europe trying to replace Russian gas and oil now, they look to countries like Nigeria. So obviously there are some things that we're not getting right.
Yes, it's true that we're flaring gas. It's true that we are very rich in gas resources. Yes, it's true. But you must differentiate between LPG as cooking gas and natural gas. LPG, for example, which is a derivative from processing natural gas, or is not obtained in sufficient quantity, especially from inland producers. So inland producers, onshore producers, as you have the marginal fee producers these days, you have small quantities of LPG freed up here and there, but it's not sufficient enough to meet market demand. And the predominant supplier of LPG to the domestic market, which is Nigeria LNG, is doing its best. It has even freed up all its LPG production to the domestic market, but it's still not enough. And so there's augmentation, there's supply side augmentation through importation. But that could be better if we have more of the international oil producers freeing up their supplies instead of exporting to international markets, freeing up the product into the domestic market. Associated gas is with abundance of, sorry, I'm in a public area, so you might hear some background noise. So there's a lot of gas, of course, but until we begin to find smart ways and effective ways to deploy our gas resources, both natural gas and LPG, to domestic users, either by way of channeling gas, natural gas through reticulation to homes, or natural gas through auto gas, or LPG for auto gas. There are many applicable users and many different ways to apply these applicable uses of gas through different infrastructure types. Okay, but until we find a smart way to harness some of this, channel more of this gas to domestic market by way of government incentives, by way of incentives like finance, incentives like policy, incentives like guidelines and stuff like that, and really regulatory support. I think more can be achieved.
So I guess because you did mention that $800 million, which the federal government just got from World Bank, you do think that funds like that should be channeled towards infrastructural development to deepen the use of gas?
Oh yes, certainly. Because it's really the fund is essentially channeled at a problem, and the problem we have in Nigeria is that we are funding subsidy, and it's just not sustainable. So, in resolving that challenge, I would have expected that the industry stakeholders have sat down and said, "Well, we have this kind of money. How do we apply it beautifully and properly to solve the problem?" Not just a top-bottom approach where you say, well, you're getting these funds and it's going to be applied for conditional cash transfers, whereas we have a lot of industry projects that are hanging because of lack of funds. And the reason there's lack of funds is because there's no equity component of this project financing is missing. So this $800 million could easily be applied to fund a lot of the equity elements of the financing structures so that the debts can then flow to realize most of these projects.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Nuhu Yakubu, the Group Chief Executive Officer of Bana Energy Limited and former President of Nigeria Liquefied Petroleum Gas Association. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Jeannie, and thanks to all of you out there.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll go to Apex Commodities next.